is heavy with the scent of stagnant salt water and cold ash. Before I even open my eyes, I can taste the dampness of the lagoon on my tongue. It is a thick, briny taste that never truly leaves the mouth of anyone living on the island of Murano. I lie still for a moment, feeling the rough ridges of the straw mattress pressing through the thin linen sheet beneath me. My body aches with a dull, familiar throb in the shoulders and the right forearm, the specific phantom pain of a man who spends 12 hours a day rotating an iron pipe against the force of gravity. I push the heavy woolen blanket aside. It is coarse and smells faintly of sheep lanolin and old smoke. The room is gray, lit only by the faint, watery light of pre-dawn filtering through the old paper stretched across the small window frame. Glass is my trade, the source of my life and my imprisonment. Yet I cannot afford it for my own windows. That is a luxury for the palaces across the water in Venice proper. Here in the worker quarters, we live in the dimness to save money for wood and food. I sit up and swing my legs over the side of the bed. My feet touch the floor, and the shock of the cold stone travels up my shins. The floorboards on the upper level are wood, but down here, where the damp rises, it is stone and packed earth. I shiver, the morning air biting at my skin, which is still tender from yesterday's heat. I move to the small wooden basin on the trestle table in the corner. The water in the pitcher has a thin film of dust on it. I pour it into the bowl. It is freezing. I cup my hands and splash the water over my face, gasping as the cold hits my pores. I scrub the sleep from my eyes with my knuckles. I take a small piece of rough linen cloth, dip it in the water, and rub it vigorously over my neck and under my arms. The smell of sweat is persistent. It is a sour, metallic smell, born of intense heat and labor. I cannot wash it all away, but I can reduce it. I take a small stick of willow wood, chewed at the end to form a brush, and rub it against my teeth. I rinse my mouth with the water and spit into the slop bucket. Dressing is a ritual of layers, necessary even in the summer, but vital now in the damp chill of autumn. First comes the camiscia. It is a long, white linen shirt that reaches down to my mid-thighs. The fabric is worn soft from repeated washings, but the cuffs are frayed. I pull it over my head, and it settles against my skin, a barrier against the heavier wool to come. Next, I pull on my brag, the linen drawers that tie at the waist. I sit on a three-legged stool to pull on my couts. These are my hose, two separate legs of heavy wool, dyed a dull russet color. I slide my foot into the left one, pulling the fabric taut up my leg, over the calf and the knee, and tie the points, the laces, to the waist of my drawers. Then the right leg. The wool itches slightly, but it offers protection, not just from the cold, but from the sparks A stray ember from the glory hole can burn through linen in a second, but wool smolders, giving you time to brush it away. Over the shirt, I don a farsetto. It is a quilted doublet, padded with cotton batting. It fits close to the body. I fumble with the wooden buttons in the dim light. My fingers are calloused and slightly swollen, making fine dexterity difficult until the joints warm up. This padding is essential. When I am at the bench, the heat radiating from the furnace is strong enough to blister skin through a single layer. The farsetto acts as armor against the thermal assault. Finally, I slip my feet into my shoes. They are simple leather slip-ons, the soles thick but flexible. The leather is scarred with burns and drops of hardened wax. I walk into the main room, which serves as both kitchen and living space. My wife, Alina, is already awake. She is kneeling by the hearth, blowing gently on the embers of last night's fire. A small flame catches, licking at the dry twigs she has arranged. The smell of burning juniper momentarily masks the smell of the lagoon. She looks up, her eyes tired. She gestures to the table. The morning meal is sparse. This is not a feast, it is fuel. On the wooden board sits a loaf of bread baked 2 days ago. It is dense, made of a mixture of wheat and cheaper millet. I take my knife from my belt and saw off a thick chunk. The crust is hard, almost like wood. Beside the bread is a small wedge of cheese, a hard grating cheese from the mainland that tastes of salt and age. I sit and chew slowly. The bread requires work to break down. I take a pewter goblet and fill it from a jug of wine. It is vinilo, a weak wine made by running water over the grape skins after the first pressing. It is sour and thin, but it is safer than the water from the well, which often carries the sickness of the bowels. I drink deeply, the acidity cutting through the coating of sleep in my throat. I eat the cheese in small bites, savoring the salt. This salt is necessary. I will sweat pints of water today. Without salt, my muscles will cramp and seize by midday. I finish the meal in silence. There is little to say at this hour. The anxiety of the work hangs over me. Today we are attempting an intricate piece for a merchant in Germany, a goblet with winged handles. It requires precision that my hands are not sure they possess this early. I stand up, brushing crumbs from my doublet. I nod to Alina. She does not ask when I will return. It will be when the glass is finished, or when the light fails, or when the master says we are done. I step out of the door and into the street. The sky is lightening, turning the color of a bruised plum. The canal in front of our house is still, the water black and oily. A rat scuttles along the edge of the foundation, disappearing into a drain. The air outside is colder than in the house, a wet cold that seeps through the wool of my hose. Murano is waking up. I am not alone. shadowy figures emerge from other doorways, all moving in the same direction. We are a silent procession of ghosts, heads down, shoulders hunched. These are the glassworkers. We are the elite of the Republic, possessing secrets so valuable that to leave this island and sell them abroad is punishable by death. We are wealthy compared to the peasants on the mainland, yet we are prisoners of our own skill. I walk along the fondamenta, the stone pavement echoing with the slap of leather soles. The smell changes as I approach the industrial district. The rot of the water is replaced by the sharp, stinging scent of burning wood beech, alder, and willow. Smoke hangs low over the rooftops, trapped by the damp air. It burns the back of the throat. I arrive at the furnace, a large brick building with a tiled roof that slopes steeply to shed the rain. The doors are open, even from 10 paces away. I can feel the heat bleeding out into the street. It is a physical force, pushing against the morning chill. Inside, the light is hellish. The main furnace, the fornace, dominates the center of the room. It is a 3-tiered structure of brick and clay, roaring with an internal fire that has not been extinguished for 6 months. The lower chamber is the stoking hole, where the wood is fed. The heat rises to the middle chamber, where the crucibles sit, pots of clay filled with molten sand and soda ash. The garçon, a boy of no more than 12 named Marco, is already there. He is stripped to his waist, his skin glistening with sweat and soot. He is shoveling wood into the lower mouth of the furnace. He looks exhausted. He has likely been here since 3 in the morning, ensuring the temperature rose to the working point. If the glass is not hot enough, it is stiff and unworkable. If it is too hot, it becomes uncontrollable water. I walk to my bench. It is a simple wooden bench with 2 long arms, clad in iron strips. This is the scagno. It is my throne and my torture rack. I strip off my furcedo. The heat here is too intense for the padded jacket now. I will work in my linen shirt, though I risk burns. I roll up the sleeves of my camiscia to the elbow. My forearms are a map of white scars, the history of 1,000 accidental touches of hot glass. I greet the maestro, Giovanni. He is an older man, his face leathery and deeply lined, his eyes permanently narrowed from years of staring into the fire. He nods, pointing to the central crucible. "The cristallo is ready," he says. His voice is raspy, the voice of a man who breathes smoke. The manganese has done its work. It is clear as spring water. I walk to the tool rack. I check my instruments. The bourcelle, the large iron tongs, are heavy in my hand. I squeeze them. The spring tension is good. I check the tagliole, the square-ended knife used for shaping. The edge is smooth. Finally, I pick up my canna, the blowpipe. It is a hollow iron tube, about 4 feet long, tapering at one end. It is cold now, but soon it will be too hot to hold without a thick pad of paper or leather. The work begins. There is no fanfare. I approach the furnace. The heat hits me like a solid wall. My skin tightens instantly. I shield my eyes with my left hand and thrust the tip of the blowpipe into the baka, the glory hole. Inside the crucible, the glass is a pool of blinding orange radiance. It has the consistency of honey. I dip the tip of the pipe into the melt. I rotate it 1, 2, 3 turns. I feel the weight of the glass gathering on the iron. I pull it out. A glowing blob of molten silica sits on the end of the pipe. It is alive. Gravity immediately tries to pull it down to the floor. I must rotate the pipe constantly. If I stop for a second, the glass will droop and the symmetry will be lost. I walk quickly to the marver, a flat slab of polished marble stone. I roll the glowing gather of glass along the stone. This cools the outer skin slightly and shapes it into a perfect cylinder. The sound is a harsh hiss as the hot glass meets the cold stone. Smoke rises from the contact point. I lift the pipe to my lips. I blow, a short, sharp puff of air. I trap the air with my thumb over the end of the pipe. The heat expands the air, traveling down the tube and into the glass. The orange cylinder swells, a bubble forming inside it. I return to the furnace to reheat. The glass cools rapidly, turning from blinding yellow to orange to a dull red. When it is red, it is hard. It must be yellow to work. I thrust it back into the fire. I count the seconds. Too long, and it melts off the pipe. Too short, and it will shatter when I try to expand it. I pull it out. I sit at the bench. I lay the pipe across the iron arms and roll it back and forth with my left hand. The rhythm is hypnotic. Back and forth. With my right hand, I take the borcelle. I pinch the neck of the bubble, defining the shape. The metal tongs screech against the glass. I can feel the vibration in my teeth. The heat radiating from the glass object, which is only inches from my face, dries my eyes. I blink rapidly. Sweat is already running down my back, soaking the linen shirt instantly. The smell of the workshop is intense. Wet wood, burning charcoal, sweat, and the distinct ozone-like smell of hot metal. More glass, the maestro calls out. He is ready to add the stem. I have to be the assistant for a moment, while the boy brings a smaller pipe. The coordination must be perfect. We do not speak. We cannot hear well over the roar of the draft and the crackle of the wood. We communicate in nods and shifts of weight. I stand up, my legs cramping slightly from the bench. I go to the second crucible. I gather a small bit of glass. I bring it to the maestro. He is rotating the bowl of the goblet he has been shaping. I approach him. I must touch my hot glass to the bottom of his bowl, exactly in the center. If I am off by a fraction of an inch, the goblet will be crooked. I hold my breath. My hand is steady, though my body screams with the heat. I touch the glass. It fuses instantly. The maestro shears it off with his shears. He begins to pull the stem, stretching the molten glass like taffy. It is beautiful and terrifying. I step back, wiping my forehead with the back of my hand. My skin feels tight, baked. I grab a jug of water, kept near the cool air intake, and drink. It is warm, but it wets the throat. We are an hour into the shift, and we have made 3 goblets. One broke in the annealing oven, the cooling tunnel. A stress fracture, a wasted hour. We do not mourn it. We sweep the shards into the cullet bin to be melted down again tomorrow. The sun is fully up now outside, but in here, time is measured only by the level of the wood pile and the level of the glass in the pot. The rhythm takes over. Gather, roll, blow, reheat, shape, knock off. My hands move with a memory of their own. I look at the glowing orange orb on the end of my pipe. It is liquid light. It is dangerous and demanding. It is the only thing I know. I take a breath, tasting the ash and the salt, and I blow again. The glass expands, obedient to my breath. And for a moment, the misery of the heat and the hardness of the stone floor are forgotten in the act of creation. The morning drags on. The air in the workshop becomes stifling. The ventilation is poor, and the smoke stings the eyes. I can feel the salt drying on my face, forming a crust. My linen shirt is plastered to my chest, transparent with moisture. Around 10 in the morning, the maestro signals a brief halt. We need to recharge the small pot with blue glass for the rim detail on the next batch. The garçon brings a bucket of cobalt oxide and crushed glass. We pour it into the crucible. The dust rises, shimmering in the shaft of light falling from the roof vent. I take this moment to step away from the bench. I walk to the doorway, staying in the shadow. I look out at the canal. A barge is passing, laden with firewood from the mainland. The boatman pulls it slowly, his rhythm matching the slow pulse of the lagoon. I look at my hands. They are trembling slightly. It is the vibration of the pipe, the constant tension. I rub them together. The skin is hard, yellowed with callus, burned in spots. These are the hands of Murano. They belong to the Doge, to the Republic. I cannot leave. I cannot take a ship to France or England to sell my skills. Though agents have whispered offers in the dark corners of taverns. If I run, the Council of 10 will send assassins. They will find me. They will kill me to keep the secret of the Cristallo safe. I turn back to the fire. The blue glass is melting. The orange glow waits. I pick up the pipe. The iron is warm. Andiamo the maestro says. Let's go. I dip the iron into the fire. The day has only just begun. The heat is my world, and I must live within it. The heat is a physical weight, a living thing that sits upon my shoulders and presses down into my lungs. It is midday, the hour when the sun aligns with the fires of the furnace, creating an inferno that blurs the edges of my vision. My tunic, linen that was once white, is now a heavy, gray second skin, sodden with sweat that refuses to evaporate in the humid lagoon air. I stand before the glory hole, the circular mouth of the furnace where the fire roars with the sound of a trapped storm. My world narrows to the length of the iron blowpipe in my hands and the glowing orange mass at its tip. This is the gathering, the bala. My hands move without conscious thought. They are scarred, the skin leathery and thick, covered in small white burns from flying sparks and the accidental brush of hot tools. I roll the pipe along the arms of the scagno, the wooden bench that serves as my throne and my torture rack. The iron hums against the wood. The glass is not a solid, and it is not a liquid. It is a moment in time. It captures the motion of the earth, the gravity that seeks to pull it to the stone floor. I must be faster than gravity. I must be more constant than the tide. I bring the pipe to my lips. The metal is warm, tasting of salt and iron. I blow not a hard puff, but a steady, pressured release of breath from the diaphragm. My cheeks do not puff out. That is the mark of a novice. The pressure comes from the core. At the end of the pipe, the orange blob expands. It is a lung of its own, inhaling my breath to create a void within itself. My servant Marco steps in. He is young, 20 years old, hungry to take my bench. But today, he is merely my hands. He holds the wooden paddle, soaked in water. I lower the glowing parison onto the wood. Steam explodes upward, smelling of wet charcoal and boiling sap. The water acts as a cushion of vapor, allowing the glass to glide over the wood without sticking. I turn the pipe. Marco shapes the bottom. We do not speak. The roar of the fire consumes all language. We communicate in rhythm, in the tilt of a head, the stomping of a foot. I return to the fire. The glass must not cool. If it cools too much, it becomes stiff, unyielding. If it cools too quickly, it cracks, the sound of a day's wages shattering. I thrust the glass back into the glory hole. The heat strikes my face, drying my eyes instantly. I count the seconds by the beat of my heart. 1, 2, 3. I withdraw. The glass is honey again. I sit at the bench. I take up the borselle, the large iron tongs. This is the surgery. With my left hand, I roll the pipe continuously back and forth along the bench arms to keep the centrifugal force balanced. With my right hand, I squeeze the tongs around the neck of the glass. I pull. The glass stretches. It obeys. We are making tazzas today. Shallow wine cups for the export trade to the courts of France. They demand cristallo, the clear glass that mimics rock crystal. It is unforgiving. It hides no flaws. A single bubble, a single piece of unmelted sand, and the piece is garbage. My throat is parched, coated in the dust of soda ash and silica. The air in the workshop is thick with the smell of burning oak and willow wood. The furnace consumes mountains of timber brought by barge from the mainland. I can smell the distinct acrid scent of the flux, the chemical biting at the back of the nose. Marco approaches with the pontello, a solid iron rod tipped with a small bit of hot glass. This is the transfer. I stop blowing. I take a file, a sharp piece of iron, and scratch the neck of the vessel I have shaped. I tap the pipe. A sharp chink sounds, a vibration that travels up my arm. The glass breaks cleanly at the neck, detaching from my blowpipe. But instantly, Marco attaches the pontello to the bottom of the cup. Now the vessel is reversed. The opening is exposed to the fire. I must open the cup. I return to the heat. I spin the rod faster now. Centrifugal force flings the lip of the cup outward. I use the wood jack again, pressing it gently against the spinning rim. It opens like a blooming flower. Wider, thinner, it is terrifyingly fragile. The walls of the cup are no thicker than a fingernail. More heat, I grunt. The garzon, the young boy whose sole job is to feed the beast, shovels a scoop of dried wood into the lower chamber. Sparks fly upward, swirling around the workshop like fireflies. The temperature spikes. I finish the rim. I take the shears, the taglienti, and trim the uneven edge while the glass is still soft. The excess falls away, glowing ribbons dropping to the floor where they cool into sharp, dangerous shards. Done, I say. Marco takes the rod. He walks swiftly, but smoothly to the annealing oven, the leer. This is the cooling tunnel. He gives the rod a sharp tap, and the cup detaches, sitting safely on the sand bed of the oven. It will cool there for a day. If it cools in the open air, the thermal shock will shatter it. I wipe my forehead with my sleeve. The linen is so wet it leaves a streak of moisture on my skin. My lower back aches, a dull throb from hours of twisting and leaning. My hands tremble slightly, the nerves overstimulated by the vibration of the iron. The bells of San Donato toll across the canal. It is the midday meal. The sound cuts through the roar of the furnaces. The master of the shop, Signor Baravir, claps his hands. The rhythm of the room breaks. The blowers step back from the benches. The assistants lower their tools. The noise of the fire remains, but the human noise shifts from the tension of labor to the release of breath. I walk out of the dark, smoky cavern of the workshop and into the blinding brightness of the Venetian sun. The light reflects off the water of the canal, stabbing at eyes accustomed to the orange glow of the glory hole. We gather on the fundamenta, the stone walkway along the canal edge. The air here is different. It smells of the tide, low and sulphurous, today mixed with the rotting vegetation of the lagoon and the sharp salinity of the Adriatic. But it is cooler than the hell we just left. I find a spot on a wooden crate, keeping distance from the apprentices. A master sits with masters. Beside me sits Giovanni, a man who has blown glass for 40 years. His eyes are cloudy, cataracts forming from decades of staring into the fire. I unwrap the cloth bundle I brought from home. The food is simple, fuel for the machine of the body. First, there is the pane by Scotto. It is hardtack, bread baked twice, so it keeps for weeks without molding in the damp island air. It is like a stone. I take the flask of wine watered down, 3 parts water to 1 part wine, and pour a little over the bread to soften it. We do not drink pure water. The wells in Murano are often tainted by the lagoon or the chemicals of our own trade. The wine kills the sickness. I eat a piece of hard cheese, a grana from the mainland, salty and crystalline. It replenishes the salt I have sweated into my tunic. Then the main sustenance, sard and saor. My wife prepared this 3 days ago. Sardines fried in oil, then packed in a jar with onions, vinegar, pine nuts, and raisins. The vinegar preserves the fish, but it also cuts the phlegm in the throat. I lift a sardine by the tail, the onions clinging to its silver skin. The taste is sharp, sour, and sweet. The texture is soft, the bones dissolving in the acid. It wakes the mouth. Did you hear about the furnace at San Nicolo? Giovanni asks, chewing slowly on his softened bread. I nod, tearing a piece of the fish. The French spies. They say one of the workers was caught trying to smuggle a notebook of formulas to a contact in the city, Giovanni whispers. Though we are surrounded only by water and other glassblowers, the inquisitors of state took him last night. He won't be seen again. I swallow the food, feeling it settle heavy in my stomach. This is the reality of our station. We are the masters of the most precious material in the world. We live comfortably. My children have shoes. My wife has silk for feast days. But we are prisoners. The Republic of Venice protects its monopoly with blood. To leave Murano with the secrets of the trade is treason. The penalty is death. He was a fool, I say quietly. The French cannot make what we make. They have the sand, but they do not have the hands. They have the mirrors now, Giovanni counters. The defectors in Feinster are teaching them. Let them have the mirrors, I scoff. Can they make a dragon stem with wings of gold leaf? Can they make reticolo that looks like lace frozen in ice? No. We eat in silence for a moment, watching a barge drift by. It is piled high with sacks of soda ash, likely from the Levant or Spain, the raw earth of distant lands, destined to become the clear skin of a goblet. A group of street cats winds around our legs, begging for fish heads. They are lean, scarred things, much like us. I toss a sardine tail to a calico with a torn ear. It vanishes into the shadows of a crate. I take a long draught of the watered wine. It is lukewarm, but it washes the dust from my teeth. I can feel the fatigue setting in. This is the danger of the midday meal. The body wants to rest. The stomach pulls blood away from the brain and the muscles. But the furnace does not sleep. I look at my hands. The calluses are stained black from the iron tools. My fingernails are short, burnt down to the quick. These hands are the only thing I own that truly matter. If I break a finger, I starve. If I lose my sight, I starve. Time, Giovanni groans, standing up. His knees crack audibly, a dry, popping sound. We wrap our remaining bread. Nothing is wasted. We brush the crumbs from our laps for the birds. Walking back into the factory is like walking into a wall. The heat hits you instantly, drying the sweat that formed outside. The light changes from the blue-white of the day to the red-orange of the fire. The noise resumes. The roar is eternal. I return to my bench. Marco is already there, skimming the impurities from the pot of molten glass. The metal is good, he says, referring to the glass. Clear, no seeds. We switch to the ewers, I command. The ones with the long spouts. This requires a different rhythm, a longer swing. I gather the glass. The routine begins again. Gather, marver, blow. The afternoon stretch is the hardest. The food sits heavy. The focus requires twice the effort. I must make the spout of the ewer. This is delicate work. I attach a small gather of glass to the body of the vessel. I take the bourseul and pull. I must pull the glass out into a long, thin tube, then curve it back like the neck of a swan. If I pull too slow, it slumps. If I pull too fast, it becomes too thin and will snap later. I hold my breath. My heart beats against my ribs. I guide the hot glass into a perfect arch. I use the shears to cut the tip, creating the pouring mouth. I look at the curve. It is graceful. It looks effortless. No one who buys this in Paris or London will know that my back is screaming in agony, or that the sweat is running into my eyes, stinging like acid. They will only see the light caught in the crystal. I signal Marco. He takes the piece. As he walks away, I take a moment to look around the floor. There are 10 of us masters in this room. We are a choreography of labor. No one bumps into another. We anticipate the swing of a blowpipe, the step backward of a servant. It is a dance of fire and iron. To my left, old Stefano is making beads. He is working with a lamp, a smaller flame. He winds colorful glass around a copper wire. It is small work, eye-straining work. He hums a tune, something low and body, to keep his rhythm. To my right, a younger master is struggling. His glass is off-center. I can see the wobble as he rolls it. He is fighting the material. You cannot fight the glass. You must persuade it. He curses, a sharp blasphemy that is lost in the roar of the intake. He smashes the piece into the cullet bin, the box of broken glass to be remelted. A waste of labor, a waste of breath. I dip my iron into the pot again. The heat radiates against my cheeks. I can feel the skin tightening. They say a glassblower's face ages twice as fast as a normal man's. We are dried out, like leather left in the sun. But then I see the gather on the end of my pipe. It glows with an inner light, pure and untouched. It is waiting for me to give it form. For a fleeting second, I forget the heat. I forget the guild spies. I forget the aching joints. I am a creator. I breathe, and the stone comes to life. I roll the pipe. The rhythm takes me. The midday lethargy burns away, consumed by the necessity of the moment. There is only the fire, the glass, and the will to make it perfect. Block, I say to Marco. He raises the wet wood. The steam rises. We continue. The midday meal sits heavy in my stomach. A stone of bread and salted fish that fights against the heat of the furnace. Returning to the workshop floor is not a walk, but a wade into thick, invisible water. The air inside the factory has changed since morning. It is no longer fresh with the promise of a new day. It is stale, recycled through the lungs of 10 men and the belly of the great central furnace. The smell is sharper now. The sulfur from the fuel has settled into the brickwork, and the metallic tang of hot iron tools lying on the marver creates a taste on the back of the tongue that no amount of watered wine can wash away. I step back to my bench, the Scagno. It is a simple wooden seat with long, flat arms, worn smooth and dark by the friction of the blowpipe rolling back and forth for 20 years. My thighs ache as I sit. The leather of my apron is stiff, crusted with the dried sweat of the morning, and the wax used to lubricate the tools. I take a moment to look at my hands. They are swollen, the veins prominent ropes against the skin, trembling slightly. This is the tremor of the trade, the vibration of the blood trying to cool itself. I rub my palms together, feeling the calluses that are as hard as the wood I handle. Marco, my servant, is is already at the glory hole, the circular mouth of the furnace where we reheat the glass. He looks tired. His shirt is plastered to his back, translucent with perspiration. He catches my eye, and I give a single nod. There are no words needed. The afternoon is for the difficult work. The morning was for volume, for filling the crates with simple tumblers. Now, while the glass in the crucible is at its most perfect viscosity, free of bubbles, settled and fined, we must make the stems. The task is a goblet in the style of the dragons. It is a frivolous thing, designed for the tables of dukes who value complexity over utility. It requires 3 distinct gathers of glass and the speed of a striking snake. Marco gathers the first blob of molten cristallo on the end of the blowpipe. He brings it to me, the metal rod glowing a dull cherry red near the heat. I take the pipe. The weight is familiar, an extension of my arm. I roll it along the arms of the bench, the rhythm hypnotic. With my left hand, I keep the pipe turning. If I stop, even for a second, the glass will slump, obeying gravity, and the piece is ruined. With my right hand, I take the jacks, the long steel tongs with spring steel handles. I touch the metal to the glass. Smoke rises instantly. It is the smell of burning beeswax and charred wood. I squeeze the jacks, narrowing the neck of the hot glass, pulling it outward. I blow gently into the pipe. My cheeks do not puff out like the cherubs in the church paintings. The pressure comes from the diaphragm, a controlled release of air that expands the bubble millimeters at a time. The glass is fighting me now. As the afternoon wears on, the ambient temperature of the room rises, but the glass seems to cool faster. Or perhaps my reflexes are slowing. I have to reheat. I thrust the piece back into the glory hole. The heat hits my face like a physical blow, drying the moisture in my eyes instantly. I count the seconds by the beat of my heart. 1, 2, 3. Too long, and it melts into a puddle. Too short, and it will crack under the tool. I pull it out. Now comes the surgery. Marco approaches with a second iron, a pontil rod, holding a small, glowing dollop of blue glass, colored with cobalt. He waits. I continue to roll my pipe. At the exact moment, the rotation brings the stem to the top. He touches the blue glass to the clear. I pull the jacks away and pick up the shears. Snip! The metal bites through the molten glass with a dull, crunching sensation. I grab the small pliers. I pull the blue glass while rotating the stem. It stretches, thin and serpentine. I twist it, looping it back on itself to form the wing of the dragon. The heat radiating from the object is intense, searing the knuckles of my right hand. I can feel the skin tightening, the hair on my arm singeing, but I cannot pull away. To pull away is to fail. We repeat this dance 4 times. blue glass. Snip, pull, twist, reheat. My back screams in protest. The position of the glassblower is unnatural, hunched forward, spine curved, one shoulder higher than the other, constantly rotating. The muscles between my shoulder blades feel as if they are being knitted together with hot wire. I shift my weight on the wooden bench, but there is no comfort to be found. The light in the factory begins to shift. The high windows, mere slits in the brick high above, usually let in sharp beams of white daylight. Now, as the sun moves west over the lagoon, the light turns golden and hazy, catching the millions of dust motes and ash particles floating in the air. The atmosphere becomes dreamlike, a golden haze of smoke and exhaustion. But this beauty is dangerous. The changing light alters how the color of the hot glass appears to the eye. In the bright noon, the orange glow is distinct. In the golden afternoon, the contrast fades. I have to trust my sense of touch, the resistance of the material against the steel tools, more than my eyes. A drop of sweat rolls from my forehead, stings my eye, and blurs my vision. I blink rapidly, shaking my head, but I do not stop turning the pipe. I cannot wipe my face. My hands are occupied with the creation of luxury. We finish the goblet. It is a monstrous, beautiful thing, delicate and impossible. Marco attaches the pontal to the base and cracks it off the blowpipe. He carries it to the annealing oven, the Lear, to cool slowly over days. If it cools too fast, it will explode. I do not watch him go. I simply lay the blowpipe down and lean forward, resting my elbows on my knees, letting my head hang heavy. The fatigue is not just muscular. It is a deep, marrow-level exhaustion. It is the result of losing water faster than I can replace it. I signal to the garzon, the young boy whose job is to scurry between the furnace and the well. He brings a pitcher of water mixed with a sour, cheap wine. It is lukewarm, but it feels like life itself washing down my throat. I drink too fast, and the liquid sloshes in my empty stomach. There is no rest. The master of the shop, a man who owns the furnace but can no longer blow a bubble to save his soul, walks past. He taps the bench. We need 20 simple beakers before the light fails. The drag sets in. This is the hardest part of the day. The creative challenge of the dragon stem is gone, replaced by the monotony of production. Dip, marver, blow, shape, crack off, dip, marver, blow, shape, crack off. My mind begins to detach from my body. This is a necessary survival mechanism. If I focus too much on the pain in my wrist or the blistering heat on my shin, I will make a mistake. So I let the body work on memory. I watch the other men. To my left, old Giovanni is struggling. He is 60 an ancient age for a glassblower. His breath is short. I hear the wheeze in his chest, a rattle that speaks of lungs coated in silica dust and smoke. He is making plates, spinning them out by centrifugal force. The glass flies out flat, a disk of fire. He moves slower than he did last year. We all know his time is coming to an end. Soon he will be relegated to stoking the fire or sorting the silica. A humiliation for a maestro. I look away. I see my own future in his trembling hands. The heat seems to thicken as the afternoon wears on. The ventilation in the factory is poor, relying on the heat rising to escape through the roof vents, drawing cooler air in from the floor. But on a still day like today, the air stagnates. It feels solid, a blanket of wool wrapped around the head. I am working the bottom of a beaker now. I take the wooden paddle, the pallet, to flatten the base. The wood is charred black. As I press it against the glass, a thin stream of smoke curls up directly into my nostrils. It smells of scorched cherry wood. My eyes are dry and gritty, feeling as though sand has been rubbed into the lids. This is the fear of every glass worker, the cataracts. The constant exposure to the infrared glare of the glory hole cooks the lens of the eye over time. I squint, trying to shield my pupils, looking slightly askance at the fire rather than into its heart. A sudden shout breaks the rhythm. A young apprentice, carrying a finished vase on a fork, has tripped. The glass falls. The sound is not a crash, but a dull, sickening thud as the hot glass hits the dirt floor, followed by the sharp ping of it shattering as the thermal shock tears it apart. The boy freezes. The maestro shouts a curse, a sharp Venetian blasphemy involving the Virgin and a pig. The boy scrambles to sweep up the shards. They are still hot enough to burn through leather. He uses a metal shovel, scraping the dirt. I do not stop turning my pipe. To stop is to lose the piece. To lose the piece is to lose money. We are paid by the piece, not by the hour. The empathy I feel for the boy is distant, muffled by the necessity of the work. The sun is low now. The light inside the factory has shifted from gold to a dim, gray twilight, illuminated fiercely by the orange mouths of the glory holes. They look like portals to hell opening in the gloom. The shadows lengthen and dance on the walls, monstrous distortions of men and tools. My arms feel like lead. The deltoid muscles burn with a dull, constant fire. The skin on my face feels tight, like parchment stretched over a drum. I have stopped sweating. This is dangerous. I take another drink of the watered wine, forcing it down. Last gather, I say to Marco. My voice is a croak, rough as a file. He nods, his own face streaked with soot. He goes to the crucible. The glass level is low. He has to dip the pipe deep, angling it to catch the last good metal, without scraping the sludge at the bottom of the pot. He brings it to me. I make the final beaker. My hands move with economy, wasting no energy. I shape the lip with the shears, cutting the excess glass away. It falls to the floor, joining the debris of the day. I open the jacks, flaring the rim. It is done. Marco takes it to the leer. I sit for a moment, the iron blowpipe resting across my knees. The metal is still hot, warming my legs through the apron. But the fire in the furnace seems to roar a little quieter. Or perhaps my ears have simply gone deaf to it. The shutdown begins. It is not a sudden stop, but a winding down. The apprentices begin to rake out the ashes from the ash pit. The dust rises, choking and gray, coating our sweaty skin in a fine layer of grit. We look like ghosts, gray men moving in the gloom. I stand up, and my knees pop audibly. My lower back seizes, a sharp spasm that forces me to grab the bench for support. I wait for it to pass, breathing through the nose. I straighten up slowly, vertebra by vertebra. I walk to the water barrel and dip a rag in. I wipe my face, the neck, the arms. The water turns black instantly. The relief is minor. The heat is stored inside me, in the core of the body. It will take hours to dissipate. The social dynamic of the room changes. The hierarchy of the bench, maestro, servant, garzon, dissolves into a collective exhaustion. We are no longer parts of a machine. We are just tired men. Good color today, Marco says, wiping his hands on his trousers. Too stiff, I reply. The mixture needs more soda ash tomorrow. Tell the mixer. He nods. We do not discuss the dragon goblet. It is in the oven. It will survive, or it will not. It is out of our hands. I remove my leather apron. It is heavy, stiff with wax and sweat, and holds the shape of my body even when I hang it on the hook. Underneath my linen shirt is a rag, gray and clinging. I put on my outer doublet, the wool scratching my sensitized skin. We step out of the factory doors. The shock is immediate. The air of the lagoon hits me. It is cool, damp, and smells of salt and rotting seaweed. After the sterile, burning smell of the furnace, the organic rot of Venice smells like perfume. The breeze cuts through my damp shirt, sending a shiver rattling through my depleted frame. The sun has set. The sky to the west is a bruised purple, fading into black. The water of the canal reflects the lanterns being lit on the passing barges. I walk with the other men toward the traghetto, the ferry that will take us across the small canal to the residential cluster. We walk slowly, a procession of shadows. No one runs. No one laughs loud. We preserve what little energy remains for the walk home, for the stairs, for the few words we must speak to our wives. I look back at the factory. The chimneys are still smoking, black plumes against the night sky. The fire never goes out. It waits for us. It eats the wood, and it eats the sand, and it eats the years of our lives. I rub my thumb over the callus on my palm, a patch of skin hard enough to strike a match on. I am empty. I have poured my breath and my sweat into the glass, leaving nothing for myself but the hunger for sleep. Tomorrow, Giovanni says beside me, his voice a wheeze. Tomorrow, I agree. We step onto the boat, the wood creaking under our weight, and push off into the dark water, leaving the fire behind, but carrying its heat in our bones. The heat of the furnace does not leave the room simply because the work is done. It hangs in the air, a heavy, invisible curtain that presses against the skin even as the fires are banked. The final vessel of the day, a delicate goblet with a fluted stem, has been safely placed into the cooling oven, the lyre. My hands tremble slightly, not from fear, but from the vibrating exhaustion that settles into the muscles after 12 hours of manipulating molten sand. I watch the servant, the young assistant, shovel a thick layer of ash over the coals in the main chamber. The roar of the fire, which has been the only sound in my ears since before dawn, drops to a sullen, rhythmic huffing. The bright, blinding orange light that usually floods the workshop dims to a dull, blood-red glow. It is the color of a dying sun. I set my blowpipe, the canna, onto the wooden rack against the stone wall. The iron is cooling, turning from a dull gray back to black, but the end is still hot enough to blister skin. I check the length of the metal for any warping. It is straight. Beside it, I place the borcelle, the steel jacks used to shape the glass. The metal of the tool is smooth, polished by the friction of thousands of rotations against hot crystal. I run my thumb over the blade of the shears, the tagely. They are dulling. I will need to sharpen them before the morning bell rings again. My apron is stiff with sweat and soot. I untie the leather cords at my back, my shoulders protesting the movement with a sharp, grinding ache. The leather falls away, heavy and smelling of charred animal hide. Underneath, my linen tunic is plastered to my chest, translucent with perspiration. The air in the workshop, though still sweltering to a stranger, feels suddenly chill against my wet skin now that I have stepped away from the glory hole. I pick up a distinct taste on my lips. It is the taste of the factory. Sulfur from the coal, wood smoke from the beech logs, and the metallic tang of the tools. I spit onto the dirt floor. The saliva is thick and dark. There is a bucket of water near the door, tepid and clouded with dust, but it is precious. I cup my hands and splash the liquid over my face. It stings the small burns on my cheeks, the tiny red flecks where sparks kissed the skin hours ago. I rub the back of my neck, feeling the grit that has accumulated in the hairline. The water runs down my chest, cutting channels through the soot. It is not a true wash, but it is a ritual of separation. It marks the boundary between the maestro of the furnace and the man of the house. I nod to the other men. We do not speak much. The noise of the day has consumed our words. A simple lift of the chin suffices. We are bound by the secrets we keep and the island we cannot leave. Stepping out of the factory is like stepping into a different world. The sky over Murano is a bruised purple. The sun having sunk below the lagoon line moments ago. The air here, outside the workshop walls, is thick with humidity. It smells of salt, stagnant water, and the rotting vegetation of the marshes. It is a cooler, wetter heavy than the dry, searing heavy of the furnace. I walk along the fondamenta, the stone pavement that borders the canal. The water is black and glassy, reflecting the few torches that have been lit along the bridges. A barge drifts by, laden with fresh bundles of willow wood for tomorrow's fires. The boatman pulls it silently, the wood creaking against the oarlock. The silence of the evening is profound after the roar of the fire. I can hear the slap of water against the stone foundations of the houses, the distant bark of a dog, and the murmur of voices from behind shuttered windows. Murano is a golden cage. We, the glassmakers, live like princes compared to the fishermen of the outer islands, but we are prisoners of our own craft. I look across the dark water toward the main cluster of Venice. I can see the faint lights of the city, but I cannot go there without permission. To leave the Republic with our secrets is death. To stay is to work until the lungs give out. Tonight, looking at the stillness of the water, I do not mind the cage. I am too tired to fly. My home is a narrow, 3-story structure sandwiched between a bakery and the home of a mirror maker. The stone is old, stained by the damp rising from the canal. I push open the heavy wooden door. The hinges groan, a familiar greeting. Inside, the air is scented with rosemary and boiling beans. My wife, Elena, is at the hearth. The fire here is small, domestic, a tame beast compared to the monster I tend all day. She turns as I enter. Her face is flushed from the cooking, her hair tucked back under a plain linen cap. She sees the fatigue in my posture, the way my shoulders slump forward. She pours a basin of fresh water. This is the second washing, the true cleaning. I strip off the soiled tunic, the fabric peeling away from my skin with a wet sound. I stand naked to the waist in the center of the room. The stone floor is cool under my feet. Elena hands me a rough cloth and a piece of hard soap made from tallow and ash. I scrub the grime from my arms, paying attention to the calluses on my palms. They are thick and yellow, insensitive to heat, but the soot works its way into the cracks. I wash my hair, bending over the basin, the water turning gray as it rinses away the factory. I dry myself with a coarse towel and pull on a fresh tunic. It is wool, dyed a dull red, scratchy but dry. It feels like armor against the damp night air. We sit at the wooden table. It is scarred from years of use, the grain raised and polished by elbows and spills. The meal is simple. We are not nobility, but we eat well enough. There is a bowl of ribollita, a thick stew of beans, kale, and stale bread boiled down into a hearty mush. Beside it sits a plate of fried sardines, caught this morning in the lagoon, their skin blistered and silver. I reach for the jug of wine. It is a local red, thin and acidic, but we water it down further. I pour a cup for myself and one for Alina. The first sip cuts the lingering dust from my throat. It tastes of the earth and the barrel. I break a piece of bread. It is 2 days old, tough and chewy, and dip it into the stew. We eat in a comfortable silence for the first few minutes. The act of chewing, of swallowing warm food, sends a signal to my body that the labor is truly over. The tension in my stomach uncoils. Alina speaks of her day. She tells me of the price of onions at the market, which has risen again, and of the neighbor's child who has a fever. I listen, nodding. These small, domestic details ground me. They are the anchor that keeps me from drifting back into thoughts of silica and soda ash. I tell her about the goblet. I describe the way the stem twisted, the difficulty of keeping the symmetry, while the glass cooled so rapidly in the winter draft. She listens with a critical ear. She is a glassmaker's daughter. She understands the language of the trade. She knows that a flaw in the cooling means a wasted day and lost wages. When the bowls are empty, I use the last crust of bread to wipe the ceramic clean. I do not leave a drop. The evening chores await, but they are light. I must check the woodpile in the small courtyard behind the house. I take a tallow candle, shielding the flame with my hand as I step out the back door. The light flickers, casting long, dancing shadows against the brick walls. The wood is dry. Good. Damp wood smokes and ruins the glass. I bring in a small bundle for the morning fire in the kitchen. Back inside, Alina has cleared the table. She sits on a low stool near the hearth, mending a tear in my hose. The needle flashes in the firelight. I sit in the high-backed chair, the one with the rush seat. I pull my shears from my belt. I take a whetstone from the mantel. The sound of the stone sliding against the metal blade is rhythmic and scraping. S-H-H-H, S-H-H-H, S-H-H-H. I work slowly. The edge must be true. If the shears pinch rather than cut, the hot glass will distort. I test the edge against my thumb. It bites. I wipe the blade with an old rag. The smell of olive oil mixing with the scent of the dying fire. My hands ache. It is a deep, throbbing pain in the joints of the fingers and the wrists. The vibration of the blowpipe, the constant turning, the weight of the molten glass, it takes a toll. I massage the webbing between my thumb and forefinger. The skin there is like leather, devoid of sensation, but the muscle beneath is tender. I look at the small window. The shutters are closed and barred. The Council of 10 has eyes everywhere, they say. They watch to ensure we do not sell our secrets to the French or the English. Even in my own home, I feel the weight of the Republic. I am a master of the most coveted art in the world, and yet I am owned by the city. The candle has burned down to a nub. The tallow pools around the wick, threatening to drown the flame. "It is time," Alina says softly. She bites the thread and snaps it. We secure the house. I slide the iron bolt across the main door. I check the shutters again. The wind has picked up outside, whistling through the narrow alleyways of Murano. It rattles the wood, a reminder of the storm seasons that plague the lagoon. We climb the narrow wooden stairs to the sleeping loft. The air up here is warmer, holding the heat from the chimney that runs through the wall. The bed is a large wooden frame, roped tightly to support the mattress. The mattress itself is stuffed with wool, not straw, a luxury of my rank. I strip down to my undershirt. The fatigue is now a physical weight, pressing my eyelids down. I kneel for a moment beside the bed. I do not say a formal prayer, but I touch my forehead to the wood. I give thanks that the glass did not shatter. I give thanks that my burns are minor. I give thanks for the bread. I blow out the candle. The darkness is absolute. There is no ambient light here, no street lamps, only the faint gray outline of the window frame where the moonlight tries to push through the cracks. I lie down. The wool mattress conforms to my body, supporting the tired curve of my spine. The linens are cool and smell of lavender, which Alina uses to keep the moths away. I pull the heavy woolen blanket up to my chin. Beside me, Alina shifts, settling into the hollow of the bed. Her breathing evens out quickly. I close my eyes. Immediately, images of the fire return. I see the orange glow against my eyelids. I see the molten blob of glass at the end of the pipe, expanding as I blow, fighting the desire to collapse. My body twitches, my hands jerking slightly, as if trying to rotate a phantom pipe. This is the glassblower's curse. We work even in our sleep. I focus on the sounds of the night to drive the fire away. I hear the water lapping against the canal walls below, a gentle, rhythmic sloshing. I hear the creak of the house settling into the mud. I hear the wind singing over the chimney pots. My breathing slows. The ache in my shoulders dulls into a distant thrum. The heat of the day finally dissipates from my blood. The orange visions fade into gray, and then into nothing. The heavy, dreamless sleep of the laborer takes me. The glass is safe. The fire is banked. The day is done.